Good morning, Big Ten football fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Big Ten Morning Minutes. I'm your host, Michael Chen. It is Monday morning, January 14th, another weekend of Big Ten happenings going on with a lot of movement going on still on the football side as it seems like football never sleeps. It's a lot of transfer movement here, a lot of coaching movement, so we'll get right into it. Illinois got some not so great news this past weekend as there's a potential that one of their transfers, Jeff Thomas, might actually not be coming to Champaign as Miami had hired Manny Diaz, and at the current moment, Jeff Thomas thought that he was leaving. He had an opportunity to talk with Manny Diaz, so there's a potential that Thomas won't be going anywhere. He could potentially still be staying with Miami, so we'll keep that monitored as Thomas still could be a Hurricane, but obviously the Illini fans would absolutely love to see him lining up for them in Champaign this coming year, so we'll watch that. But they got some good news as well as their running back Reggie Corbin will return for his senior season. On top of that, Ohio State got a return as well as going to be senior Damon Arnett will return for one more year in Columbus, and officially linebackers coach Bill Davis, who the Buckeyes will not retain, has signed a professional contract to coach the linebackers for the Arizona Cardinals. Iowa continued their strong start to their 2020 class as Gavin Williams becomes their third commit, putting them in the top 15 in the nation early on in the rankings of that 2020 class. So a very good start for the Hawkeyes going forward. We'll monitor how they do coming up here in the next year or so as well. And again, more transfer news as well as former Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurts ended up visiting Maryland this weekend. He also visited Oklahoma as well and should be currently on the Miami campus. So this one should be wrapping up soon as Hurts most likely will be making his decision very shortly. And obviously we'll keep tabs on what's going on with Hurts and keep you up to date as soon as his decision will be announced. Michigan State, unfortunately, will be losing a little bit of depth on their front line as defensive tackle Mufi Hill Hunt will be leaving East Lansing and pursuing a graduate transfer as well. After meeting with officials at the University of Michigan, Boston College former defensive coordinator Anthony Campanale will move into a defensive assistant role with the University of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. They also completed their 21, 22, and 23 schedules as they have added a few MAC teams going on in there. Nothing really of note, no big-time rivalry games potentially going up in there, but they've added a couple MAC schools, including Western Michigan, Northern Illinois, and then an out-of-conference team in Colorado State as well. Minnesota has continued to add to their coaching ranks as they are going to add former Temple defensive lineman and assistant head coach Jim Panagos to lead their defensive line. They also added a transfer in USC wide receiver Randall Grimes. He's a big-time body at 6'4", but very, very little experience. He got to play in L.A. with USC. Penn State got a bunch of bad news this past weekend as multiple players have announced that they will be transferring from the program. They include wide receivers Juwan Johnson and Brandon Polk, cornerback Zechariah McPherson, and safety Lamont Wade, who will seek a more traditional transfer as opposed to the first three. They'll seek the graduate transfer route. So very interesting to see what's going on at Penn State, as typically James Franklin has done a good job of keeping his players either staying or going to the NFL, not necessarily transferring. So very interesting to see if maybe the ship is not going so great over there in Happy Valley. So interesting to find out how that goes going forward. On top of that, Purdue, they're doing some things over there as their attendance has spiked, and they're doing a very smart thing here as they're going to hire a company called Elevate SV to get some fan input into making a renovation to Ross-Ade Stadium. If you have been to Ross-Ade, it's built into like a hill type deal, and it's actually a pretty neat environment there at Purdue. So if you haven't been to a game there, go. It's a lot of fun. I personally have been to more than half of the Big Ten stadiums, and Purdue, it's a nice time. It's not the worst stadium. It's not the best stadium as well, but it's definitely interesting to see that they're putting a little bit more resources and funding into the football program, which is severely needed, I think, for all Big Ten schools. And it's good because, lots of money with TV contracts, etc., and a lot of exposure, especially with Purdue keeping Jeff Brom, which I think was really, really big for the conference. So really like what they're doing on that end for the Purdue Boilermakers and in East Lafayette. It'll make it much nicer, as well as they just finished up some other renovations, and I like what they're doing here with the stadium at Ross-Ade as well. On the court, a couple things of note, as Indiana point guard Robert Finis finally was cleared on Friday to return from a concussion, so that's a boon for the Hoosiers as well. And then another injury for the Spartans. Michigan State's Kyle Ahrens will continue to miss some games here, as he did miss yesterday's contest as well against Penn State due to a back issue. So his status is unknown going forward. They do have a game on Thursday, so we'll see how healthy he is for that contest. And then a little bit of news on the gymnastics end, as obviously Michigan State had some issues with Larry Nassar. However, Michigan obviously didn't, but they had a consulting relationship with Rhonda Fain, and they're going to end that because of a relationship that she did have with Larry Nassar. Now, Fain was never charged with anything, but I think this is more of a save face type move for the Wolverines, as I think they want to disassociate themselves as far away from Michigan State and Larry Nassar as humanly possible, and I don't disagree with that move at all. Not being associated with that issue is probably in the best interest for the university. So that's going to wrap it up for this morning's Big Ten Morning Minutes. I've been your host, Michael Chen. You can give me a follow on Twitter at MFC2123. I tweet about college football news all the time, and I really enjoy some interaction with you on that website as well. Thanks for listening, Big Ten fans. Have a great Monday morning.